Good evening. Welcome to the August 16th edition of the Downers Grove Village Council meeting. Whether you're watching on TV or here in council chambers, we're glad you're with us tonight. As is our custom, we'll begin our meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Rosa, would you please call the roll?
Mayor Barnett,
Here.
Commissioner Jose, Commissioner Wallace,
Here.
Commissioner Sadowski-Fugit, here, Commissioner Cullivaney,
Here.
Commissioner Gilmartin,
Here.
Commissioner Glover.
Here.
We are without Commissioner Jose tonight. He is tending to some family members. I'm sure all want to express our condolences to his family. His mother-in-law passed away earlier this week, and so they're working through that situation. If you know Greg or you know Rose and you see him, make sure you give him a hand and give him a hug. We miss him tonight. We'll go on to some comments concerning the structure of our meetings. The public comment portion of our meetings are important and valued parts of each meeting. There are provisions in the agenda for such input at each active and first reading item, as well as later in an open item not specific to an agenda topic. But beyond tonight's meeting, there are a variety of additional opportunities to engage council members, including the e-remarks system, the CRC system, coffee with the council, direct email, and by phone. The public comment opportunities tonight are intentional parts of a structured meeting and offer opportunity to deliver comments to the council. Please remember it is not a debate, nor is it an open question and answer session. As such, we do have some expectations on how they'll be handled. Please state your name for the record. Keep comments to 5 minutes or less. Avoid repeating what others have already said. Please keep your comments to one visit to the podium per subject. And remember that comments are most effective when they focus on subjects within the scope of Downers Grove governance. If you forget to mention something or additional conversation brings up a new idea, please hold that until after the meeting and use one of the other contact methods to contact us, or bring that comment to a next council meeting. With that, on item 3 on our agenda, is there a motion concerning minutes of previous council meetings?
Mayor, I move to approve the council meeting minutes from the August 9th, 2022 meeting as presented.
Second.
Any comments or questions from the council on those? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Those are approved unanimously. Item 4 on our agenda tonight, we have 2 public hearings. These are a little bit unique for our meetings. They both concern special service areas. So we'll start with special service area number 12. This public hearing will now come to order. The public hearing has been called by the Village Council to consider the formation of special service area number 12, also known as Fairview Ridge Subdivision, and the levying of taxes affecting said area. The special service area is located on the west side of Fairview Avenue, approximately 100 feet north of 61st Street. An accurate map of the said territory is on file in the office of the village clerk and available for public inspection. Notice of this hearing was published in the Daily Herald newspaper July 29, 2022, and a certificate of publication has been made part of these proceedings. I'll summarize the procedures we'll follow for this public hearing. First, village staff will provide an overview of the proposed special service area. Next, there will be an opportunity for members of the village council to ask questions or make comments. Then there will be an opportunity for members of the public to make comments or statements or submit written statements for the record. We'll ask again after that if any member of the council wishes to make a statement or ask a question, and then we'll ask for a motion to adjourn the hearing. At this hearing, witnesses will not be sworn in, and verbatim written transcripts of the statements or testimony will not be prepared. However, a recording of the proceedings will be made on village equipment and retained until minutes of the hearing have been approved by the village council. So with that, we'll start with the staff presentation.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. As the Mayor noted, this is a public hearing for special service area number 12, Fairview Ridge Subdivision, which is on the west side of Fairview Avenue, just south of 61st Street. As you may recall, it's a single lot right now. It's proposed to be subdivided into 7 lots with an outlot for stormwater detention. The HOA is responsible to maintain the stormwater detention system, and so the SSA is being put in place in case the HOA defaults and does not maintain the stormwater system. The village would then step in and assume responsibility for that and be able to levy taxes for those costs. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have tonight, Mayor and council members. Thank you.
Thank you, Stan. Any questions or comments from the council? One, just for clarification, Stan, if we got to the point of needing to, we would begin levying. We do not plan to levy taxes unless there's a situation that causes us to have to step in and do maintenance, right?
Correct. We would not levy unless the village had to assume responsibility of the stormwater system.
Okay, thank you. Any comments or questions from the public? Okay, one more round to the council. Any comments or questions? Okay, is there a motion to adjourn this hearing?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That hearing is adjourned. We have another very similar hearing tonight, so bear with us on the duplicative nature of these proceedings. This public hearing will now come to order. This hearing has been called by the Village Council to consider the formation of a Special Service Area Number 13, Kapovich subdivision, and the levying of taxes affecting said area. The Special Service Area is located on the east side of Dunham Road, approximately 120 feet north of Crystal Avenue. An accurate map of said territory is on file in the office of the village clerk and available for public inspection. Notice of this hearing was first published in the Daily Herald newspaper on July 29th, 2022, and a certificate of publication is made part of these proceedings. Again, I'll summarize the procedures we'll follow for tonight's public hearing. Village staff will provide an overview of the proposed special service area. There will be an opportunity for members of the village council to ask questions or make comments. There will be an opportunity for members of the public to make statements or comments or submit written statements of comments for the record. I'll ask again that the village council wishes to make any statements or ask questions, and then we will move to adjourn. At this hearing, witnesses will not be sworn, and a verbatim written transcript of the statements or testimony given will not be prepared. However, a recording of these proceedings will be made on village equipment and retained until minutes of the hearing have been prepared and approved by the village council. With that, we'll open up for a staff presentation.
Thank you again, Mayor. Good evening, council members and Mayor. Public hearing for Special Service Area Number 13 on Dunham Road. As the Mayor noted, it is on the east side of Dunham Road, just a little bit north of the intersection with Lamont Road there. The property is a single lot currently. It was approved for a subdivision that has 6 lots, and now Lot A for a stormwater management system. As previously noted in the previous public hearing, the HOA in this location is responsible for the maintenance of the stormwater facilities. Should the HOA not maintain those facilities, the village could assume those responsibilities and then levy the taxes at that point for maintenance. I'd be happy to answer any questions that the Mayor and Council may have at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Stan. Any questions or comments from the council? Questions or comments from the public? Seeing none, one more time with the council. Any comments or questions? Is there a motion to adjourn this meeting?
Mayor, I move to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? This public hearing on Special Service Area 13 is adjourned. So for those watching at home trying to figure out what that was all about, there are certain procedures that we go through that ensure, frankly, transparency and the opportunity for the public to comment on certain legislative actions. In this case, we were establishing the opportunity to levy an additional tax to maintain stormwater management systems if at some point a homeowners association in the future failed to do so. Hopefully and ideally, they will never actually exercise that, and we have numerous such setups throughout the village. That hearing was an opportunity for members of the public to comment on it, in theory, to object or support it. It's not uncommon for those to go just like that did with very little comment. It's a pretty straightforward, standard process. So, with that, we'll move on to our consent agenda. Is there a motion concerning the consent agenda?
Mayor, I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Just like that, we're on to item 6, our active agenda. This is the portion of the meeting where we take up subjects we've discussed previously, and we plan to take some action on them tonight. With that, is there a motion for a special use on Ogden Avenue?
Mayor, I move to adopt an ordinance authorizing a special use for 621 Ogden Avenue to permit a drive-through as presented.
Second.
Any comments or questions from the audience on this item? Comments or questions from the council? So again, just a little clarification for those watching at home. These are subjects that we have talked about previously, so don't let the lack of commentary be equated to a lack of interest or a lack of concern. They're just at this point pretty fully vetted out subjects. Rose, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Wallace?
Aye.
Commissioner Sadowski-Fugit?
Aye.
Commissioner Glover?
Aye.
Commissioner Gilmartin?
Aye.
Commissioner Cullivaney?
Aye.
Mayor Barnett?
Aye. That motion passes 6-0. Is there a motion concerning extension of our agreement with Allied Waste Services?
Mayor, I move to adopt a resolution authorizing execution of an extension and amendment to the contract between the Village of Downers Grove and Allied Waste Services of North America, LLC, as presented.
Second.
Any comments or questions from the audience on this item? Comments or questions from the council? All right, well, I'll weigh in. This is a big deal. It affects every resident of the Village of Downers Grove. The village works hard to put together a refuse program with a supplier, with a vendor that we think is a good value to our residents and provides the kind of services they expect. We've had a long-standing relationship with Republic. There were a couple of rounds of dialogues, and we got a proposal back from Republic that we felt good about and confident did just that, provided good services and a value. As with any contract, there are components of it that any one of us up here might wish was a little bit different. But overall, as we balance the needs and interests, which range from everything from environmental concerns to direct costs, we think we've landed at a good spot. So I'm happy we're going forward with this and getting this one behind us. Rose, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Wallace?
Aye.
Commissioner Sadowski-Fugit?
Aye.
Commissioner Glover?
Aye.
Commissioner Gilmartin?
Aye.
Commissioner Cullivaney?
Aye.
Mayor Barnett?
Aye. That motion passes 6-0. That takes us to our first reading portion of the meeting. The first reading portion of the meeting is where we discuss items either for the first time or again, but items in which we do not plan to take any formal action this evening. So with that, I'll hand it over to Village Manager Fieldman.
Thank you, Mayor Barnett. Just one item on tonight's first reading agenda. It concerns the property in 931 and 935 Ogden. Our Community Development Director, Stan Popovich, will present information on this item.
Thank you, Manager Fieldman. Good evening, Mayor and council members again. This is a special use extension request for 931, 935 Ogden Avenue. Property is located at the southeast corner of Highland and Ogden Avenue, here outlined in green. As you may recall, this property received approvals on July 13th of 2021 for a construction of a mix for a multi-tenant commercial building here. And you can see in the picture a drive-through, which was the request for the special use, was the drive-through use. And then the drive-through proceeded around the counterclockwise around the site plan. Petitioner is currently pursuing permits, but has not been able yet to secure those at this time as they're working with IDOT in the village to address some comments. So they're requesting a 6-month extension to complete the permit process and move on. If I can answer any questions from the Mayor and Council, I'll be happy to do that at this point.
Thank you, Stan.
Thank you.
Any comments or questions from the audience on this one? Comments or questions from the Village Council? Rich, please.
Yeah, this is a typical and common request that comes with us from time to time. Occasionally, a developer needs more time, and this is a reasonable request.
Just a quick question. Do all of these developments that require a drive-through require a special use? Is that something that we need to
Yes.
provide every time?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, thanks.
Okay, any others? Okay, thank you, Stan.
Thank you, Mayor.
That completes our first reading tonight, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Item 8 is our attorney's report. Enza.
Thank you, Mayor. Only one item to present tonight, and that's an ordinance authorizing the extension of a special use to permit a multi-tenant retail building with a drive-through that will be on not next week's, but next meeting's activity.
Thank you. Item 9 on our agenda tonight are public comments. This is the portion of the meeting where the public is welcome to present comments to the council on items not on tonight's agenda. So if you have an item on your mind you'd like to address us with, please come on down to the podium.
Good evening, Council. My name is George Swimmer. I'm a resident of Downers Grove, and I have been probably for over 35 years. I'm also a member of the DuPage Railroad Safety Council. I have been since its formation in 1994. I've investigated many train accidents over that period of time, several in the Downers Grove area, several throughout the Chicago metropolitan and suburban area. I'd like to talk to you a little bit about Downers Grove, about the Metro BNSF line, and I'd like to also talk to you about the Metro UP line. The Metro UP line has in place a second train warning system that alerts the public, the pedestrian public, that a second train is approaching. It does it both verbally and with LED lighting. It also has channeling that leads the pedestrians, the commuter pedestrians, around the, through the platform, around the platform, and behind the gate. That exists in Downers Grove on Washington Street. It does not exist at any of the other crossings. It also has, UP West Line also has recognizable fencing from one side of the track to the other side of the track. The Metro BNSF line does not have that. At one of the very first council, DuPage Railroad Safety Council meetings, Dennis Mogan, who was at that time the safety official, safety director at Metro, told me that the BNSF line is extremely dangerous because people don't recognize when a second train is approaching. Over the years, there have been numerous train accidents, not only in Downers Grove, but throughout the BNSF line, pedestrian-type accidents. I reached out to the Illinois Commerce Commission, the gentleman that does statistics for them. I asked him on the Metro BNSF line, how many accidents have they had, and compare that to the UP West line. UP West line has had 0 accidents, okay? The Metro BNSF line has had numerous accidents, numerous. Let's talk about the fencing along the, between the platforms, between the north and the south platforms. It's very noticeable fencing on the Metro UP West line. Along this line, you can't even tell there's fencing there. It's like invisible fencing. I talked to a vice president for Metro BNSF line about the fencing. I said, maybe you could put tie-downs on them or something so people know there's fencing there. Do something. The fencing at night, if you went there now, you wouldn't even know there was fencing unless you really keenly looked for it. Let me just review my comments for just a quick second. So, I have reached out to numerous people going back almost 30 years to have a second train warning system in place along the Metro BNSF line. I have talked to the CEO of Metro. I've talked to numerous officials at the BNSF line. I've written to Warren Buffett, whose company owns the BNSF line. No results. People acknowledge there's a problem, but no results. It's almost like a hubris type attitude, like a godly type attitude they have. So what I would like to do is I'd like, the FRA has a report that was issued in 2012 that basically outlines what I said exists on the Metro UP line, and it recommends that commuter stations have this in place: channeling, second train warning devices, noticeable fencing in between. I'm going to present this to David. If you could make that a part of the minutes, I would appreciate it. That's all I have to say. I would hope that at some point in time, either this council or someone makes a more sincere effort to have a more protective operation in place when it comes to Metro. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Others with comments not on tonight's agenda? Okay, we'll move on then to the mayor's report. Tonight, it's my pleasure to appoint and reappoint some members to some boards and commissions. It's part of one of the things about this job that's really enjoyable is allowing opportunities to exist for others to get involved in their local government. Rosa, would you please read that?
Yes, I will, Mayor. A resolution appointing and reappointing members to village boards and commissions. Whereas Mayor Barnett has made the following appointments to village boards and commissions. Now therefore be it resolved that the Village Council of the Village of Downers Grove does hereby confirm the following appointments. Environmental Concerns Commission. Reappoint Melissa Ellis, Lisa Dantoft, and Ken Kuchar to 3-year terms expiring August 31st, 2025. Human Services Commission. Reappoint Paul Drabick and Mark Skurjon to 3-year terms expiring on August 31st, 2025. Liquor Commission. Reappoint Rob Johnson to a 3-year term expiring August 31st, 2025. Plan Commission. Reappoint Cal Patel, Matthew Demitrizen, Michael Mauer, and Michael Boyle to 3-year terms expiring August 31st, 2025. Stormwater and Floodplain Oversight Committee, reappoint Kelly Borman and Joseph Iovinelli to 3-year terms expiring August 31st, 2025. Transportation and Parking Commission, reappoint Matthew Novak to a 3-year term expiring August 31st, 2025. Reappoint Jeremy Shaliga to a 3-year term expiring August 31st, 2025. And Timothy Carter as chair to a 3-year term expiring August 31st, 2025. Zoning Board of Appeals, reappoint Joanne Eberhardt to a 3-year term expiring August 31st, 2025, and appoint Commissioner Chris Gilmartin as an executive board member of the Economic Development Corporation. That is all.
Thank you. Can I get a motion to accept those appointments?
Mayor, I move to accept the following appointments.
Second.
Let me just add to this, this time this around is a little broken up. What you just heard are folks who are being reappointed. There are approximately that many additional appointments which we're still working on. One of the things that I have been trying to do is impose a bit of a term limit, if you will. Frankly, just trying to allow more opportunity for people to be involved in their government. And so those names that you just heard are people who, in most instances, are completing just one term of service. They're relatively new appointments and have done a good job, and we're welcoming them back. There will be another round of appointments, most likely in September, that will hopefully be a bunch of new names, a bunch of new folks who are trying to help their community. So I appreciate everybody's help in that process as well. Any comments or questions? Rich, please.
Yeah, I had a comment about the Plan Commission members, and it's laudable that we're trying to get new people involved, but that is one position that has a high learning curve, and having those experienced people be willing to come back to the board, I think serves Downers Grove well, because then they can look at previous cases. Many times the Plan Commission gets a case that's 269 pages long, and they have to digest it and go to the site, and they have to understand the zoning. Those people typically attend APA training, so having that continued experience level, I think, is a worthwhile thing to do. And as we introduce new people, then they get to watch the more experienced people in operation.
Thank you. Other comments? Rose, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Wallace?
Aye.
Commissioner Sadowski-Fugit?
Aye.
Commissioner Glover?
Aye.
Commissioner Gilmartin?
Aye.
Commissioner Colavani?
Aye.
Mayor Barnett?
Aye. That passes 6-0. Thank you all. Item 11 on our agenda tonight are council member reports. This is an opportunity for council members to report out on other goings-on in the community, other groups that they're working with or party to. We'll look at Danny and start with Rich.
No report, Mayor, thank you.
Leslie.
There are only a few slots left for the Grove Foundation's annual golf outing on September 10th, but there are still plenty of opportunities if you want to donate any sort of a gift basket or be a whole sponsor. So talk to any of us or check out the website. Thanks.
Thank you. Nicole?
No report tonight, Mayor. Thank you.
Danny?
No report, Mayor. Thank you.
Chris?
Yeah, just one thing I would just like to ask our residents as the new school year is starting, just to be cognizant of kids walking to school as you're pulling out of your driveways and coming up to intersections during those arrival and departure hours. Please be extra careful. And good luck to District 99 School, which started yesterday. Thanks.
Thank you. I'll just second both my colleagues' comments. The Grove Foundation Golf Outing, if you're not familiar with the Grove Foundation, take a few minutes, look at their website, check out their social media. They're a great group of folks in town, have been here for many, many years. They do a variety of work in our community, mostly with kids, mostly centered on education. It's a great organization. And to Chris's point, I tell everybody, most of the times we hear complaints from our residents, they surround two things, stormwater and traffic. And traffic is a big deal. If you've been watching these meetings, it's a huge deal for this body, it's a huge deal for our community, so Chris is spot on. Please give it a second thought, make yourself extra aware as school starts these days. We are going to take a brief pause in our meeting, and we're going to re-adjourn the meeting over in the committee room. The manager is going to have a report tonight on our long-range planning. We'll discuss some high-priority action items. We'll reconvene in about 5 minutes in the committee room, which, if you don't know, is just across the hall. We'll reconvene this council meeting in the committee room to discuss priority action items as it relates to our long-term planning process. And Dave, you introduce the evening.
I will do so. You took a couple of notes right from my sheet here, Mayor. This is meeting number 3 of our long-range plan update. Tonight we will be discussing priority action items. The council created this work plan that's shown here behind me in the summer of 2021 when this council was seated. The council has the opportunity to make changes to these action items, should you desire to do so. If proposed changes are identified here tonight, staff would like the opportunity to review the proposed changes and present our thoughts and recommendations back to the council at the next village council meeting here on September 6th. So going to our board here, 9 of the 10 action items are proceeding according to the work plan. The 2 largest projects, of course, are the Civic Center project, also known as facilities, a new police station and village hall, and the replacement of our ERP system. 4 items have already been completed. 5 items are in progress and on schedule, and 1 item was considered by the village council and ultimately tabled in late 2021. All the priority action items are shown graphically on a Gantt chart here on the whiteboard. And there is a report included in the agenda materials which provides much more detailed information on each of these action items. In addition, council members were provided a verbal overview of the projects on phone calls that took place yesterday. So just to take a look here, you can see in the Gantt chart the priority action items on the left and the timeline going across the top that goes from the middle of 2021 to about the middle of April 2023. The blue line on the Gantt chart represents where we are today, so significant ground behind us and about 8 months worth of work still in front of us. The big projects, the facility Civic Center, is a project that started long before this council was seated. This council reaffirmed that project, and it will go through the end of completion in 2024. Same process with the ERP. It started before this council and would continue on until 2024. We're happy to answer any questions the council may have about any of these items. And again, there's more information in the agenda materials. We simply want to hear the council talk tonight about any changes the council would like to make. And if changes are proposed, we'll get back to you with our thoughts at the next council meeting. Mayor?
Thank you, Dave. So important, a couple of important things. One is we want to weigh in on the existing plan and whether there are pieces of it that are ongoing that we don't want to continue. That's sort of the first question. And then whether we think there are additional things that we want to add or adjust going forward. So it's kind of a roundtable discussion. We're going to all talk about what's on our mind, the things that are priorities to us. I'm assuming there will be additional things that people want to add. And to Dave's point, what we'll do then process-wise is not so much debate the merits of any of those tonight or the details, but if there's enough agreement around the table that, yeah, that's something we want to consider, we'll ask staff to come back to our September meeting with some quantification of that. What does that really mean in terms of time and resources? So with that, does anybody want to start the conversation? Anybody got a new idea on their mind or a particular comment about the ongoing work? Leslie, please.
Yeah, I'll start with one comment about the ongoing work. I know this is something that's not going to necessarily be part of our planning right at this moment, but as we think about the sale of village land for the Civic Center, I really want us to consider affordable housing. There are numerous benefits to the community, and in fact, there was just recently a study that came out that suggested that everybody does better when those who are on the opposite ends of the socioeconomic spectrum interact with one another, and that's one good way of doing it. I am more than willing to compromise on what that looks like, whether it be a specific development or a certain percentage of units. But there's a real great benefit to this community. I know I've talked to a lot of folks that work in the village of Downers Grove at some of our downtown businesses, and they can't afford to live here because the rents are incredibly high, and to buy right now, of course, is often cost prohibitive. So I would really love to see some of those young professionals and folks that work here, young families, be able to afford to live in Downers Grove, and also those, I've had conversations with those who are retired and on a fixed income who would like to stay in Downers Grove but are struggling to because of how high the rents are. So I know that's not something that we're going to be doing right now. I know the sale of the land is down the road, but it's something that I thought was really important to just keep in mind as we move forward.
It's an important part of these meetings, too, is that very thing, right? We all know that there are challenges with resources, but keeping things on the table and in front of each other is an important part of what we're doing here, too.
So staff will just chime in on that one. The timeline of that, the next council will be the council that considers the type of request for proposal that goes out for that parcel that we've identified for private sector redevelopment. That will start almost immediately, so May of '23. It gives us a timeline that aligns really well with the completion of our building and ready for development.
Rich, please.
Yes, I'd like to see us consider an amendment to the stormwater ordinance that allows for tree preservation. And we've been kicking around the various ideas, and primarily at the real high level, it would involve a survey where before developer clear-cut a lot, then that person would meet with the village forester or staff and prepare a plan that says what trees can we save. And it would be a situation where we would show the value not only for that specific lot, that neighborhood, and the entire village. And it would be on the back of the request that Leslie put in earlier this year and the fine work the staff did on the tree preservation ordinance report.
That would be more of the awareness
Awareness
approach,
type.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Survey, plan, discussion, dialogue, got it.
Right. I'm not sure it rises to a priority action item because I'm not sure it'll take 6 months to get that done. A lot of work was done in this last project. Also, there was a lot of work done in 2005 when that originally came before council, so maybe a matter of dusting some of that off and reapplying it to this new approach.
I'll just loudly shake my head yes at that. I am in agreement with everything. I think that aspect of awareness would be just a huge benefit to folks. I know we've had communications with residents where potentially some of those border trees could have been protected if we would have had a survey and kind of proper planning. So just a basic awareness will hopefully help us minimize the loss of trees. I know that when we developed when Longfellow property went through, there was a voluntary tree survey that came forward, and we were able to save some trees in that scenario. So to me, that just bodes well for kind of moving forward with this.
Yeah, not sure if this is the process, but I agree with all of that as well, and think that's an important thing. I agree, I'm not sure it's a priority action item. I think it's something we can knock out pretty quickly, given the work that's been done to date, but I feel like it is something we need to address, and I too am especially sensitive to the border and boundary trees. I think that's an area where there definitely should be more focus and work, or the ability to for those folks who have boundary trees that are concerned, have some kind of recourse or some kind of voice in what's happening with those trees.
I'll continue to speak to that too. Dave knows I called him about a issue a few months back, and I said, hey, I've got some neighbors that suddenly, they had all these trees behind them, and now they can suddenly see out to a certain very busy street, and learned a little bit more about how the process in which developers have to and also do not have to go through when it comes to a new development. So this I think is something that we've got what we need, and now we just need to make something happen with it. Staff has already done all the work.
Okay. Dan, you got any thoughts on that? You can shake your head in opposite direction, that's okay.
Well, it would be a little hypocritical of me to speak on that and say that I support that after I just did my project, but we tried to keep as many trees. I'm not as much of a fan of requiring developers and people trying to invest in the community. I mean, we just spoke about how expensive it is to live here, and that's adding one more piece of it that makes it a little more expensive. So I'm not quite a fan of adding more red tape to developers and people trying to invest in the community. I mean, would I love to see more trees saved? Yes. Or some type of, you take down a tree, you plant a tree, something like that. I'm just not, I don't know how much more red tape I want to put on these projects.
For the purposes of tonight and the question of are these things we want to learn enough quantification about at our September meeting to decide if we want to add them to the action item, I think this is one that I certainly do. That process would be, in September, we'd find out what we thought it took to get through it, right? And then we decide if we're going to do it or not. And then if we said yes, then we go through the process just like we do on any other item, where we'd have green sheets and meetings and hearings and data and things about it. So it's not a decision tonight per se, but really about the process. So I think you got direction on that, Dave. Other items folks want to comment on? Rich, go ahead.
Well, I wanted to comment on Leslie's point, because that's been an issue in Downers Grove for some time. But I think it makes sense for us to review what the ad hoc committee on affordable housing did back in, I believe, 2007, because I know there were many meetings, and things have changed a little bit, but not dramatically since then. Probably actually just gotten worse. So I think it'd be worthwhile to, that's free staff work, actually, stuff that's already done.
As we look at the calendar, the question we're asking ourselves here is what do we want to do in the next 7 months? And so that's, I think, an interesting subject, but in my mind, it's not something that I have much interest in getting into in the next 7 months. We're going to have a point where we have that subject, what to do with that parcel, is front and center for this council, and there'll be lots of pieces to it. To me, that's the time for us to talk about that, I think.
I just think Leslie intended just to throw it out there.
Okay.
That's how I interpreted it.
Yes. I don't expect
Yeah,
it.
no, and that's,
So,
which is totally all right, yeah.
yeah.
I did want to add a point to the facilities, and Dave and I have spoken about this, and we talked about this today, is the idea of trying to get rid of fleet maintenance from this location and put it somewhere else, particularly as we go out with the apartment. If we could have a plan in place, perhaps for a regional type service facility, a fleet maintenance facility, and then instead of those apartment dwellers looking over, those on the east side looking over fleet maintenance, and then also the neighbors behind us on Maple, if we could at least start that ball rolling and get in communication with other units of government, other municipalities, units of government, to see if we can combine that. Location is always an issue. Downers Grove itself doesn't own a lot of our own property, but perhaps it would be utilizing the space, either part of the state of Illinois between Findlay and 355, where they have state police cars there. Perhaps we could do something in conjunction with them as well, and then it would be, you have kind of Amazon and Findlay on one side, 355 on the other side, wouldn't be disturbing neighbors, and places like Lombard might be willing to share in that. Lyle, just coming down Warrenville Road, maybe Westmont, who knows who would want to be involved in that as well.
Other subjects or comments on existing work plan? Chris, go ahead.
Yeah, so I don't think it's any surprise that I'm very interested in revisiting and actually visiting maybe for the first time the concept of complete streets. I think and still contend that while I commend staff and their efforts to add components of complete streets on some of the projects that we've had, I still believe as a village we are behind in our efforts to moving towards making the village simply more accessible and pedestrian friendly. And I contend that it's just simply because we don't have a plan or a vision to do so. As you recall, I brought this up last year because I felt then, as I do now, we have an obligation as a community to work towards this. I think as a council, we've already shown support for environmentally conscious efforts, as demonstrated by our unanimous support of the green base initiatives in our facilities, civic center. We're investing millions of dollars to make our civic center more environmentally friendly. And I think what I would like to see is us take a look at how we can do that beyond that, building more non-motorized environmental friendly components into the streets and sidewalks of our village. I won't get too much into what complete streets is. I think we talked about that last time, but basically just making things more easily traversable for non-motorized. I think it's critical to remember that our comprehensive plan, a plan we use as a compass for the direction of what we're doing, calls this specifically out to create a complete street policy to, quote, provide a safe environment for both bicyclists and pedestrians. So I know that many of us are hesitant to add more stuff to the plate of our staff with the Civic Center and ERP, but I would contend that we have the opportunity to leverage outside consultants, as we do with other projects, to take on some of that heavy lifting. So lots of benefits to complete streets, not least of which increasing the encouragement of active transportation. 1/3 of our population doesn't drive, which includes seniors, folks with disabilities, and the young. Economic growth in connecting our residents to various economic hubs, including the downtown and other areas. We talk about traffic a lot, and reducing that, I think, is an opportunity. The parking, all of the things that I've talked about in the past. I just think making the village a more walkable and bikeable town has many, many, many advantages. There's been, I think, even just in the last year, evidence that supports why this is important. In our most recent effort to bring safety in and around the high school, the recommendations that came back from those experts included bike lanes, and these efforts are also designed to slow traffic down as well, an issue we have been discussing and facing for a long, long time. Our efforts on Prairie included complete street components with the bump out, slowing down traffic, making it more safe for pedestrians. Gas prices in a year, gone up 25%. And bicycle sales are up 20%, even to pre-pandemic levels. So that's a trend that I think will continue. So I would love to see, rather than I think last time when I was asking for sort of the full boat, just given some options on what we can maybe do to leverage outside resources, to present to us like what's possible. And I don't think we have a good handle on what we know. We know we have a tight grid system that's been around for a long, long time, and it might be hard for us as a council or even staff to visualize what those components might be. We need to look, I think, towards experts, and I would love, just the opportunity to work with a resource to help us, just give us what is possible, and then from there we can decide if these are efforts that we want to take. I would hate for another 20 years to go by and us do nothing. We had a bike plan in 2013, which was obviously 10 years ago, and even before that there was discussions of this. So I would hope that we can look at this as an opportunity on many, many fronts, and I just think it's worth a worthwhile endeavor. And so I would hope that we can look to staff to help bring us, as we think about next time around, like what it would take to get that kind of vision or that opportunity, so that we can start to evaluate if these are things that as a council we want to implement. Something I certainly think is important.
Looking for head nods and additional comments to Rich, please.
A part that continuously strikes me about this issue is how wide the streets are. And, when the Facebook site and website, Strong Towns, they talk about typically the reason people are speeding too much is because the roads are too wide and the speeds will increase depending on how wide the road is. And one way to do that is put in either bike lanes or sharrows. Dunham is a great example. It's really hard to stay under 25 miles an hour on Dunham because it's really wide. Another example, my son lives in Darien, so we're on Manning all the time, and Manning looks like a 4-lane road, even though there's only 2 lanes, and even though that's not part of Downers Grove, it occurs to me that they have real trouble controlling the speed on that little stretch of road that comes out to 75th Street, and they've got the speed indicators that go on, and my wife and I kind of always joke about that, will I be under 25? But anyway, it's just that whole idea. And Dunham is another great example because there are bike lanes south of Concord, the street that I go in, and a little bit further than that, and then it narrows down and the bike lanes disappear, 3 blocks from the high school. And if we can't have bike lanes within 3 blocks of a high school, where can we have them? And then I would think the other area is the routes for our commuters to use. If they can jump on their bike and then jump on the train, that's another kind of a double win for Downers Grove. Yep.
Leslie, please.
Yeah, I would be interested in just seeing, what it would take, right? So whether it be what it takes from time or what it would take, to budget for a consultant, again, just to kind of tell us, like how wide our roads are, which areas, what would be possible. So I am interested in at least seeing that for the next meeting for sure.
Ditto that. Thank you.
Also, if we could just see which Chicago suburban communities have adopted this, maybe we just steal all their staff work.
I think you provided that at one point,
Yeah.
correct?
I think I
All
have
the
that.
And
information.
staff pulled
have
that as
So
part
maybe
of a
that's what I'm
request.
thinking of.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's a bunch.
Yeah.
There's a bunch.
I'm like, I do remember seeing
Yeah.
that.
And more importantly, how they apply the policy writing is actually
Yeah.
really
Easy part.
straightforward. How it's applied is the real challenge, meeting the Downers Grove expectations.
Yep.
We don't put policies on a shelf, we
Yeah.
back them. So this is, looks like we're getting close to getting direction on this, that's the way we'll approach that research as well.
Anyone else?
Yep. I would be interested in taking a look at semi-automatic weapon and high-capacity magazine restrictions, similar to what Naperville has done. We do know that 87 of the mass shootings in the United States between 1982 and July 2022 involved weapons, which were obtained legally, and it was the majority. When assault weapon, well, semi-assault rifles and high-capacity magazines are used, they result in far more deaths and injuries. Our deadliest mass shooting incidents in the U.S. always involve the semi-automatic assault weapons and high-capacity magazines, including, and we even just recently had one here in Highland Park. It leaves, the numbers tell you that as opposed to, mass shootings that are not used with these semi-automatic rifles and high-capacity magazines, they leave 6 times as many people shot per incident. And we're seeing a huge increase in the number of mass shooting incidents that involve these semi-automatic rifles, including, again, the one in Highland Park, which that weapon was bought legally outside of Highland Park because we know that they actually do have an ordinance. So while I know that there are going to be plenty of folks that think, so what, it's just Downers Grove, what does this do? Well, the more of us that do this and the more of us that put these things forward, if we can stop one of these mass shootings, then that is valuable. If we can stop one person from legally obtaining a gun that can cause panic and bloodshed in something as simple as a school or a 4th of July parade, then it's worth it. There is absolutely no reason that we should be continuing to do nothing, because mental illness exists all over the world. We have struggles, that we face the same issues that everybody around the world does, and we have this problem because we have an excess of these guns that can be used to kill people en masse. I'm not interested in restricting anybody's right to have a firearm for protection for their family, or go hunting for deer. I grew up in Ohio and worked at a state nature preserve. I know plenty of that. But we have an obligation as elected officials to do something about this. And if we don't, if we decide to do nothing after we're watching our neighbors die, I mean, we just saw more shootings on I-88. There were 2 things that were reported while I was visiting family in Ohio this weekend, which is why I masked up, just to try and be cautious of my community. This keeps happening, and it keeps happening because we keep doing nothing. So the more communities that come out and actually do something about this and say, okay, we know what the statistics are based on FBI data, and we know that this is being used more and more often, let's protect our community. The more of us that do it, the more the state notices, and the more that the rest of the country notices. So to me, stopping just one individual is worth it. So again, if we as elected officials do not step up and take action, that blood and those deaths are going to be on our hands too. And we may just be able to operate within the realm of Downers Grove, but that means something. And so the more of us that get together and work as a community and work as a region, then I think the better. So I'm very interested in seeing something similar to what Naperville put forward. I know that from what I understand from talking with staff, we do only have one large gun sales operation, and it's likely mostly to law enforcement, which again, I would consider different than sales to the public. I would let law enforcement handle those conversations because they know much better than I do about how those sales and operations go. But I would like to look into prohibiting the sale of semi-assault rifles and high-capacity magazines in Downers Grove, and even potentially put in a law, an ordinance, that if the state ever changes its approach on allowing municipalities to ban the possession, I would be very interested in looking at that as well.
Anyone want to weigh in on that one?
I will. I 100% support this effort, and I thank you for raising it. I think we have, as Leslie said, an obligation to do something. I know our reach as a village government is relatively limited now because of what the state allows, but if there's one thing we can do, and that prevents the sale of any semi-automatic weapon that could be used in one of these heinous attacks, I think I would be 100% behind it. I, too, also support the idea of looking at laws that would go into effect should the state hopefully improve on the laws that are there now. But I think this is an opportunity for us to to demonstrate, as Leslie so eloquently said, what we stand for here, and I would support this wholeheartedly. And I want to also, I think, thank Naperville for taking the first step, because I think it has helped to open up the eyes and the opportunity for other municipalities to take a look at this.
Anyone else?
I'll weigh in. I don't want to speculate on what the state's going to do, but as it relates to the sale and what we're talking about right now, which is what Naperville is dealing with, I would agree with everything my colleagues have said. I even shared that I spoke with my dad, and I know, Commissioner Gilmartin's father was also a police officer, and I said, hey, how do you feel about this? Sent him the Naperville information. He said it's long overdue. So I agree. Thank you for bringing this forward.
Anyone else?
Would this also encompass the things about the FOID cards and the, those regulations as well that you gave us, was it about a week ago?
Oh, yeah, we provided, staff provided council with information about the current state of Illinois FOID card regulations and revocation processes, and the village's police department role in assisting in certain cases, in certain parts of revocation. We're happy to share that information. I did not hear any proposed changes to FOID card for the.
No, it sounds like we're pretty in compliance, yeah.
Okay.
Is that something council has to act on, or is that just something we have to enforce?
No, I think that's per state law, per state practices.
Yeah.
And just because, if I may, just because we're using the word revocation, none of that is part of what I think
No.
we're looking for to touch, not ownership, private ownership, anything along those lines. This is just the sale, current
Rephrase what I
sale,
think
please.
we've
Yeah.
heard the council
Yeah.
say.
Yeah.
A consideration of semi-automatic weapon, large-scale capacity magazine sale prohibition, similar to the Naperville draft ordinance. And then we heard Commissioner Sadowski-Fugit say, and potential discussion of banning possession of said materials when the state law allows
Correct.
for it.
That's correct.
Yes.
Do we have any gun shops in town that sell those?
No, we have a retailer that we believe, we have to do a lot more research on this, but we do have a retailer in town that sells primarily to law enforcement personnel. We need to double check what exactly they sell and to whom and under what restriction.
So that would be part of this.
All right, anyone else on that subject? Okay, any other subjects to bring up?
I would support Chris's complete streets. I would like to see what's possible and work towards some type of long-term vision there. And then in regards to video gaming, I don't think that is going to be, I think it's just taking up space on our priority action. I think that most people would agree to remove that, since we really never voted on it. But I would like to see some type of information in regards to the fraternal organizations, and if they're going to be implementing that, if the village is able to come up with a plan to somehow allow that for those organizations as the state has allowed for them.
Okay, so I just want to make sure, are you proposing that it get removed, or are you proposing that?
I'm proposing that I guess get removed, but I don't think it would be a priority action item for those fraternal organizations, but maybe it is, so maybe just amend it.
Okay, I think that would better
For the
capture it, because this
fraternal
is
organizations.
sitting out there is tabled, so.
Yeah.
If I'm hearing you right, some of the questions you asked on the phone call about
Yeah.
trying to capture some of the revenue opportunities should the three organizations that are allowed to operate under the state exemption.
Correct, yes.
Got it, okay, got it.
So right now, wasn't it July 1st that they're eligible to do that? And are we allowed to regulate and tax that?
Potentially.
So restart this conversation, but only after we've done the research, provided it as it relates to fraternal organizations under the state law.
Correct.
I would support that amendment. I sort of don't like it hanging out there as a tabled item.
Okay.
And then another item I'd like to shed light on that came to us through a woman a resident who was trying to open a business in the Fairview corridor, which is actually outlined in our key focus areas in the comprehensive plan, which would potentially require us to make some zoning changes in the area of the Fairview corridor that as it relates to the Rogers. I forgot which focus area that was.
Fairview sub-area plan, which has several recommendations in our comp plan that talk about changing zoning, allowing different land uses, sparking redevelopment, those types of things.
Right. So right now it's zoned for light manufacturing, which I believe is not relevant to today's to what it could be today. I feel like we could really spur redevelopment and investment in that area if we change the zoning in a combination with some redevelopment facilitation. Similar to what we did in the downtown district, I believe we could use that as a connection or an extension of the downtown district, and possibly extend the vibrancy of the downtown in that direction.
Yeah, I'll just say I love that idea. I'd love to see more of what can be done there. That's a big bite from the apple, but I think it's certainly worth taking a look and see what's there, because I think there's a lot of potential.
It sounds like really a master plan for redevelopment for that entire sub-area. It's kind of what between zoning and redevelopment incentives and
So I think the
plan
plan
itself.
exists, it's a question of implementing, right? I mean, obviously, if this goes, we'll have to relook at the plan as it shows up in our comp plan summary. But there's a lot of the work's been done talking about doing it, right?
It's ironic, that area was more vibrant when I was a kid, because it had a grocery store, it had a restaurant that was also a liquor store, it had a barber shop, it had a pharmacy, it had a hardware store, had a car dealer. All of that was right there. It had Cock Robin, so people were walking and biking to that, buying rainbow cones.
Unlimited
Sure,
french fries.
rainbow cones.
Didn't you work there?
No, I worked at Franksville.
At the A-frame.
Oh, that's what I
in Ogden. Across from where Danny used to work.
Yeah.
The double A-frame building that's been a car dealer ever since. But it was, it was literally a walkable community for the east part of Downers Grove. Everything was sort of right there.
I think that's a yes.
It'd be RRK.
I'm not sure if this would coincide with like our parking dilemma as well. I think we talked about how the village owns one of the parking lots over there that may be underutilized, and potentially we could restructure that agreement. So maybe those two can coincide together.
I think that parking lot is identified as a catalyst site for redevelopment, if I'm not mistaken. So Commissioner Gomer's talking about the mechanics we'd have to go through in steps to actually free up that lot for development.
Any other subjects? None?
No.
Any commentary on the existing continuing work, so really the first three items on that list? Nobody sees any reason to adjust that, do they? Rich?
I'd like to continue with the facilities project.
Rich, you were,
You already put up the blue fence. That's nice. You know, on DEI, this is probably more of an operational thing, but I'd like to see more sensitivity around hiring older people. There's a problem in this country that once people cross the age of about 55, they become almost unemployable in their career field. And if that is changed dramatically for them through no fault of their own, through merger or acquisition, you have people that are a long time from Social Security and Medicare not being able to get, you know, a decent career type job. And some of these people are very loyal, hardworking, and effective. So I think we should not, and it's kind of the silent discrimination, because they always have reasons why, you know, they found somebody that was a better fit. But, you know, it creates a lot of crisis in homes.
That one we can comment right now. We are always looking to improve in these areas, so that we'll just keep going on this. To be frank, whether it's a council directed this or not, this has been a big success for us, especially in the hiring, so we'll just add that and we'll take that back to the team.
anyone that got any additional topics they want to add to the list? So I wanted to comment on all of these. So we are, I'm going to speak just for me. I won't use we. I'll try not to use we right now. But there's a high degree of frustration for me in that we have chosen to consume ourselves with ERP and facilities, I think rightly. I don't second guess that decision. But between that and a COVID, big giant pause, there's a lot, that list is part of it. We probably all could add some more to it, I suspect. And that's frustrating and a little disappointing. And so I guess what I'm getting at is I would like to see, instead of 4 head nods for tonight, I think all these things, this is where I have to probably duck so that staff doesn't throw something at me, but I think all of these things, whether they have 2 names by them or 5 names by them, should come back to us in September with some definition to what this really means. There's some realities about a 7-month work window versus a 2023 budget versus the next work plan that may come into play also. But I don't hear even the ones that didn't get anybody excited, I don't hear anybody speaking against. I mean, these are 6 of us, 7 of us, if Greg was here, all trying to find ways to be helpful to their community. And I think that we should at least go through for tonight the next step of getting these things quantified and coming back September when Greg's with us as well, and we actually have something to look at and decide which ones make the list and which don't. Because I don't, I think all of us are probably wishing we had an extra couple of years and a bunch more resources.
So what I did with that comment there is I just put your initials by everyone, so if you use the traditional approach, that will get us all the items in red.
But you're still at only 3 on some of them, so.
If you go to the next level, it would add, if you direct us to do more research, then all the items on here would come forward with some kind of commentary.
I know it's a kind of a ton of work in a 2-week window, but I want to get some commentary on all of them. I suspect there will be some that pretty clearly can't be taken on in the window we're talking about, and others that pretty clearly can. But to Leslie's point, how we started this meeting, getting the subjects on the table and keeping them in front of us, a round of quantification is still helpful. Understanding what that means is still helpful. So that's what my preference would be.
Well, and I do feel like what's beneficial is that for at least for a few of these, the information is, for the most part, already put together, right? So this, I mean, yeah, so I think it looks very daunting, and I don't mean to make it sound like staff doesn't have work ahead of them whatsoever, because I know that that's not true, but I think I'm taking solace in the fact that at least there's a couple of these
So we're ready and prepared. The main role for staff is to implement the council's policies and to put this council and every council in a position to make great policy. We are absolutely ready to analyze this, provide you our thoughts and comments, no hesitation there.
Okay.
I'll echo the mayor's thoughts. I think the challenge is going to be, once you see that,
Yeah.
once we have time to digest it, where and how does that fit into that little blue line on our Gantt chart? So we're pleased, all jokes aside, we're really happy to do this work, and we have a good jump start on a lot of this.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree with the mayor's comment. I don't see anything on there that's disconcerting to me, and they all have merit, and now we have to kind of quantify and then pick our priorities. I think it was 3 years ago, my first LRP meeting, I presented this concept called Downtown Design Review, and the others in the room convinced me that you got to put that on the back burner. Well, we did, and then we picked a window where we could get it done, and now it's part of downtown Downers Grove, and we're using it very effectively. So if there are things that we need to just put off for a while, that doesn't mean that they can't become a great success months or years down the road.
So for terms of next steps, I'm just going to circle all of them, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and then we'll have more information on September 6th. We do some work about slotting them in and figuring out what it means for this group.
Yeah, can I just also ask, I think a lot of the context in which we are thinking about priority is in, as it pertains to the current staff and staffing levels, right? We are thinking about this, like, what's the workload of the current staff? And I think we all know, over the last 10 years, we've reduced staff by a ton, 15 years, whatever it was, 95 people. Is there a way we can get a glimpse into perhaps what additional resources it would take?
Absolutely. So
So that the concept isn't that we're trying to fit this into the box that we have, but if these are all in fact good ideas, or if many of them are, or they are things that we as a council deem important, I think we should be understanding what the true cost, of course, is, but what the opportunity is to look at resource. What the
Yeah.
Thank you, Commissioner.
What a great segue.
So much.
So go back to where we started, right? The long-range plan drives the preparation of budgets.
Yeah.
And that's the point.
Yeah.
We need to put our resources allocated in a way that this council wants it to.
Yeah.
So these analyses that are going to come forth are exactly that. We don't say yes or no, we can or can't do it. We tell the council what it would take to do it.
Got it.
And we make sure that the budget and the resource allocation reflects the direction of this council, which is why we do this right before we prepare the budget.
Yeah.
Right.
And there's been several examples. I'll give a recent example. A high priority action item was to do the social services referral program, and it said add staff to do it. High priority action item was police body worn cameras, license plate readers, and add staff to administer not only those programs but other elements. So we have of the state law. So we have two examples just in this council of adding staff, expanding resources, realigning resources. We're happy to do that one.
Yeah, and I think that's good, but those are also examples of ongoing things, right?
Yeah.
The referral program is ongoing, the license plate, body camera stuff is stuff that's be ongoing. We've got some things here that may be more project-based or maybe more compressed in their timeline as opposed to ongoing.
Yeah.
So, like any service organization, I think I can speak with a little authority there, that is a little bit tricky with resource planning, but I want to know. Like, I think as a council, I
Yeah.
don't want to speak for you, but I think we want to
yeah.
know
Absolutely.
what that will take.
Yeah, and I feel like staff typically, you let us know.
Yeah.
You let us know what it takes.
We went through a long period of restriction and resource
Yeah.
cutting, and now we're in a period of relooking at different
Yep.
things. So we're happy to.
Great.
Frankly, it's a little easier to do it that way. than
Yeah,
the CF plan.
sure.
I have
Rich?
a question related to resources with the ERP system. Congratulations, by the way, on what you've accomplished so far. It's amazing. We have a go-live on utility bills in October, City View in November, and a go-live on payroll of January 2023. Are any of those staff resources, would they be utilized in facilities, or just a different mix of personnel?
Oh, this is a great deal of overlap and key personnel in both these projects. So some of the leaders on the facility project, Mike, of course, heading up that team, adds a key role in that team, Andy Sikich, Stan Popovich, his team, and others. The list on ERP has a high degree of overlap. Some of like Stan's team is also heading up the entire City View module. So there is a high degree of overlap. There's a lot of folks on our team that spend like a morning doing facilities and their afternoons doing ERP. So we plan for that. We're in good shape for that. But those are exactly the kind of resource allocation questions that will come up as we try to figure out how to make these things possible. And can I take a moment to give a great shout out to our project manager on the ERP, Jennifer Rizzo, also our emergency operations manager. She was also a great leader when we transitioned to a regional 911 center. Just tremendous project management and leadership skills, her whole team, Robin Leahy, everybody on that team who's helping. It's been fantastic. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions?
Actually, that reminded me of a point I wanted to make about the shared fleet maintenance is a DUCOM for maintenance.
Absolutely.
Okay, we have a couple of visitors. Any
Yeah.
comments or questions from
Well, I want to say that I'm really proud of all the things that everybody brought forward. I really like what I am hearing from all of you on the different topics that you brought tonight. They make a lot of sense, and they're important for our community in a lot of ways and encourage belonging in our community. So I want to thank you all for that. And I realize that they take an effort and that they're not always easy to bring forward and that they're a lot of work and they take time, but it's starting the conversation. And so thanks for doing that to all of you.
Thanks for coming.
Sure.
I'll ditto what you.
Dittos are good.
You can put a little.
Okay, just out of curiosity, who are we waiting on permits for?
Who are we waiting on permits for on the license plate readers? That would be the state and the county.
Oh my gosh.
They are placed in places that are beyond our jurisdiction for rights of way. They are partners in this. The state and county are partners in this program. It's just getting through. They have just tons of these sitting there. We're working very well with the state and the county.
Okay. All right. Anyone got anything else before we adjourn? Okay, is there a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We're adjourned. Thank you all and good night.
You get chocolate milk in